Boy, oh boy, what are you doing now? I know, what are you doing now? I'm not doing nothing. What are you doing on the fight? Not doing anything. One potato, two potatoes, three potatoes, four. Five potatoes, six potatoes, seven potatoes. I don't want to play potatoes no more.
All right, I'm going to be talking about my brother Duck. It's been a while now. He's been gone since October 2nd, 1988, and we're finally getting around to this. Okay. So, first thing I want to show you is he had these shirts made, and they're kind of unique. He had a place called Duck's Putter Parts. We'll talk more about that later. So there it is, Donald Duck in all of his Harley dog glory, and then the back of the shirt says, "Get your putt down there." His shop had a sign as you went in. It said, "No shirt, no shoes, so what?" And that kind of is a good synopsis of a lot about him, actually. He was a really, really vivacious kid. He was a year and 8 months older than me. And he was extremely bright and extroverted. His birthday was August 22nd, so he was a Leo. He had blonde hair and hazel eyes, and wherever he was, he would just rule everything. I don't think my parents ever had a chance. He just kind of ruled the household. When he was about 3 years old, somehow he taught himself how to speak like Donald Duck. And that became something that he did his entire life. It surprised everybody. And when he was older, here was this, big grown-up body with this little duck voice coming out of it. And he used it to the max. From early on, when he was in school, to the time he was, I remember one time when he was in 6th grade, and the teachers were they were able to get away with more in those days, and I think the teacher kind of had him up against the wall a little bit, and he just started talking like a duck, made the teacher laugh, and got out of that one. There's also a story that when he was in the Navy in boot camp, you know how brutal the boot camp guys could get, that he handled a difficult situation that way too. He was really, really mischievous, but he had an excellent, excellent work ethic. Since he was a little boy, he just wanted to work. So when he was about 8 years old, he went down the street where they were building some houses, and I guess we lived in a different time then, when there weren't so many rules and there wasn't so much litigiousness, I guess is the word. But anyways, he went down there, and as an 8-year-old, he learned all about electricity. He learned how to wire a house. He learned how to, lay bricks. And he did that. All the other kids were just watching TV or riding their bikes or playing football or whatever, but that's what he did all summer. His mischievousness did come out, though. He used to collect keys, and when he was 12 years old, one thing I remember is that we got a call from the police, and he had, in a subdivision where they were building houses, he had taken his keys and he'd started up a big tractor and started driving the tractor around.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so, and he was pretty fearless that way. Big, big personality. Some of my later memories of him, because we didn't live real close together in later years, but he visited me at my school dormitory once, and he kept up a monologue for about 45 minutes with the kids, and he could have been a stand-up comedian. He was very, very, very funny, And the kids just didn't know what to do about this guy. He was so funny, interspersed with the duck talk and everything. But what he did was he was really into motorcycles. Talk more about that later. But he also had a car, and he had signs in his car that if someone was driving by and he didn't like the way they were driving, he could put up a sign that they could look at. And the other thing is he had an intercom in his car that was a speaker. So from his driving seat, he could say, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing back there? What do you think you're doing?" And the people go, "Whoa!" And I don't know how he got away with that, but that's the sort of things that he did. He was very, very big personality. A lot of stories that are a little X-rated that I can't put on here, but there's those as well. And he was a really, really, really gorgeous guy. In those days, you didn't need a helmet to drive a motorcycle in Ohio, so he would be driving down in his motorcycle. He had this big, long, blonde ponytail, and he would just put his head up like that and just be driving down the road. He passed away because a woman went left of center when he was 38 years old. And he was so loved. He had such a wonderful, wonderful group of supportive people. I learned from him that the Harley people were really, really loyal, wonderful friends. And the funeral consisted of a half-mile long motorcycle people driving side by side. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so he left us early, but he left a legacy, and you can still meet people who know about him. A lot of these motorcycle people come to my mom's house in Ohio and have for 22 years now. They always come and visit her on the Sunday closest to his passing. It's like a tradition, and there's one of them who comes over and mows, who takes care of the snow, when the snow piles up in the driveway. It's a very close-knit community. There's also a yearly duck run. There is a yearly, what is it?
The motorcycle award.
Yeah, there's a motorcycle award every year that he has something to do with. So anyways, just wanted to tell you a little bit about him. Now here is especially part of my family, Robert Redner. And he knew my brother in some ways better than I did, because my brother opened up to him about certain things. And I would love it if you could kind of share some of those things with us.
Well, I don't know too much. Duck was kind of a private guy. He didn't shoot his mouth off a lot. But kind of what I do know, he was in Vietnam. He was in the Navy, and I don't know, and I may have this wrong, but from what I remember, he was a door gunner on a helicopter. And any of you who are old enough to remember what it was like to be in country in the 60s and in the ship, if you were a door gunner in a helicopter, pretty much you know what he went through. Crashed, landed a couple times, got pulled out once, and as he was leaving, as they were dragging him out, he grabbed one of the chains that drove the tail rotor of the helicopter, and he wore that chain on his wrist for his whole life. Got discharged and got dumped in San Diego. Pretty mentally freaked out. He was kind of introverted and been through a lot of trauma, of course. He'd bought a new Japanese motorcycle, a Yamaha 250, in a box. Wherever they dumped him off, he went and bought some like $8, cheapo Chinese, whatever it was, tool set, and he started to put this motorcycle together in the parking lot of, I guess, the 32nd Street Naval, station. And some guy rode up on an old beater Harley Davidson trike, and said, "Hey, what is that? It's a new motorcycle." And Duck says, "This is the new Yamaha 250 Enduro bitchin' Japanese bike, and I'm gonna put it together and ride back home to Ohio." The guy says, "What do you want to trade?" And I don't know what happened, but in the end, this guy wound up with a $8 cheap set of tools and a Japanese bike to put together, and Duck rode off on that trike. And he rode back to Ohio, and that's what got him into Harleys, because I guess the thing broke down about 1,000,000 times, but he learned how to fix it. And he got back and lived, at home at first, and started tinkering with his motorcycle, and wasn't doing much with his life, and his dad didn't lean on him too hard because he knew he'd been through a lot of BS, you know. So he was riding around Litchfield or wherever, Medina, I don't know, whatever town it was that he was in, you know, and his bike was looking pretty good now because he was a pretty handy guy. He was pretty skillful with his brain in his hands, and this thing was running pretty good. And you'd run, you know, of course, Harley dogs love Harley dogs. You'd run into other guys, and their bikes wouldn't be right, and they'd chit chat, and Duck would say, "Well, I'll work on it for you." So they'd bring the bike over to the house and freak out Duck's dad because they're loud Harleys and stuff, you know. But Duck would work on these things, and man, he just had a knack for motorcycles. He just had this knack, and this thing got bigger and bigger. I know that one of the things that really kind of propelled him into pulling this off is he found a Harley Davidson wrecking yard in Pennsylvania and bought it from the guy. And one winter, I think maybe 19 trips back and forth into the hills of Pennsylvania, an old beater Vega wagon he had, dragging all this Harley stuff to the house. And then finally he rented a building. And I don't know if the big shop he built was the second building or his first building or whatever, but he started his own motorcycle repair business and restoration business. And because he'd scored all the original Harley parts from the salvage yard, you know, he could put them back together and build them with real parts. There were at that time, there was actually no aftermarket manufactured parts for Harley. It was Harley or nothing. The military used Harley Davidson for motorcycles, and when they sold out Harley, Duck went and bought these tons and tons of lots. You know, they would just sell these big piles of Harley parts on pallets, have a number on them, and you would bid. So on pallet 19, you'd get like a quick glance, bid on the pallet. If you won, great. You take it home, take it apart, you'd find like 9 brand new frames, 3 brand new engines, you know, new tires. It was amazing, and he looted the army of all their Harley Davidson parts. He built a 4,000 square foot shop in Medina? Litchfield. That the bottom of the shop was where he did his motorcycle work, and upstairs he turned into his house. And his whole deal was it was like he would just kind of do what he wanted, and so he would usually start work about midnight, you know, and work till like 8 or 10 in the morning, then check the answering machine for calls, and then just unplug and do what he wanted during the day, sleep, build bikes, things like that. Over time, what happened is because he had all these original parts, and because he must have made a deal with the devil for his craftsmanship abilities, he became internationally well known. And you could go to this guy and say, look, I want an original 1936, you know, shovel or knuckle or pan or whatever the hell was new in 1936 from Harley Davidson. And Duck would say, great, you know, like, give me $3,000, come back in 6 months. So the guy'd give him a deposit, split. Duck would go to the rafters, pull down an original 36 frame, he pulled out original 36 engine parts, original 36 tires wrapped in talcum powder. He had all the parts. And when the guy would come back to pick up the motorcycle, it was even more magnificent than the day that it rolled out of the Harley Davidson factory in 1936. It was amazing. His attention to detail and his craftsmanship. It was like every bike he did was like a show motorcycle. Nothing looked like it had ever been ridden. They were gorgeous.
Right, then there was the other guy that did the painting, right?
He had a guy that did painting, but that was the only thing. He did all the engine work and all the mechanical work and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you know, he never, in all the years he had his business, he never had a checking account. He always, he just went strictly cash.
Yeah.
And there were most people did not know his real name, Roy Schabel. He went by Duck, and as far as the banks knew, he went by Joe Duck.
His motorcycle was a full-dress Harley Davidson, you know, full fendered, full tank, whole enchilada. And he rode it year-round. It was kind of weird. The guys back east apparently ride these things year-round, and when the snow and trash comes, you just wear a wetsuit, you know, and you go through the thing. I never saw him wear a helmet, except I did see photographs. He used to race motocross with this Harley Davidson, which of course nobody does. You race motocross and real lightweight Japanese motorcycles over the hills. And he would race this big, huge Harley Davidson, and he would wear like either an old leather motorcycle helmet or an old leather football helmet, and these World War I pilot goggles or a World War I pilot helmet hat, And this is what this guy would wear as he's going off these jumps. I've seen photographs of this guy going off 5-foot berms in a full-dress pig Harley, The last time I saw him, he said he was getting older and weaker. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I put an 8-inch windscreen on the front of my motorcycle, it'd come up this much. Because the winter, it's been holy, it's just absurd. But he had a great sense of humor. He was able to work himself out of the psychological drama and trauma he went through in Vietnam. He went through a lot of trash that a lot of guys went through and suffered it. But he was able to make it out of it. He didn't wind up a junkie on the streets like a lot of guys did. And he brought a lot of joy, a lot of happiness. Everybody loved him. Christ. As Karen said, his funeral was like a freaking Viking funeral. It was amazing. And he looked like a Viking. Here's this big, fearful-looking guy. When you looked at him, except he was usually smiling. That was usually the thing. But if he wasn't smiling, you'd think, Jesus, this guy's kind of ferocious-looking. But he always was laughing and smiling, so he didn't scare you. Everybody else looked weird, wild.
Yeah, in later years, he had this ZZ Top beard that came about down
monster
here.
Beard, man. It was like this. Gotta look wild. But he had a good heart. He was a good man, stand-up guy. I was proud to call him my friend. So that's kind of what I remember about him. His eyes always, glistened when he talked, and he always smiled. And
How about his love life?
I don't know much about his love life. I never actually married the guy, so I could. I married his sister, not him.
I know a lot about it, but it's nothing that's going to go on this video.
Okay, yeah. There still might be people alive that are involved in this deal. So
he was a wild guy. We'll just leave it at that. He was a very, very wild guy. Totally loved his freedom, and
he died doing what he loved. He loved riding his motorcycle no matter what, and it was quick and bang, and he went out flying So we should all be so lucky, really. We should all be so bloody lucky. So
so thanks for watching. That's my brother.
His skills and ability were equal to what you would find in the aerospace industry. It was uncanny. He really had it down. I would look at his stuff and go, Jesus, how did you do this? Pretty amazing guy, just with those types of skills. Plus, he had a good heart. So.
Hello.
Everything was duck, and he had, of course, people gave him stuff. They gave him
ducks,
duck
decoys,
duck statues, duck dishes, duck vases. Everything was duck. He also had, he had a lot of bikes. He also had an old Indian. Yeah, it was really attractive.
Right.
But I just want to mention about, he didn't do the painting, but the person who did the painting, the painting was also very, very high quality.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's, when you think about those old Harleys with all the beautiful paint jobs on it, they were just exquisite. They were all museum pieces.
Right. The motorcycles he built were actually pieces of art.
Yeah.
They were just amazing.
They were.
And he could do factory restorations to where he could create an original factory motorcycle, as I mentioned earlier, say a 1936 type motorcycle, or he could build a chopper. He could build a show bike, a custom bike with chrome and the kicked out front end and all of that. So he could do pretty much anything as far as motorcycles went.
What are you doing now? I know. What are you doing now?
He was very, very, very well known. His shop was definitely known east of the Mississippi, all up and down the coast, because those people used to travel to South Carolina and Florida, and one of the things that they would do is they'd have these big pig roasts.
Right.
Big parties. I've got photos of those. And they always put just like they do in Hawaii, they have a pig in the ground. They have these big pig roasts, these big get-togethers, and pretty much every Sunday they rode. It was something that they did. He'd work very, very hard 6 days of the week, and then Sunday was the ride. They'd go to bars and go to people's houses and stuff like that. It was very, very much of a lifestyle. He had a Navy tattoo that I think he kind of regretted getting. Just a typical Navy tattoo on one shoulder, and then he had on the other shoulder he had a tattoo of Donald Duck smoking a hookah. One way that he achieved his freedom was through his sense of humor. People did not hold their thumbs to him because he weaseled out of it with his comedy.
Jokester.
Yeah, he was really, really a free spirit.
He didn't want anything to do with society after the war.
This was a guy who never shut up. I mean, he motor mouthed. And when he came back from Vietnam, he barely said a word for 9 months.
Long time.
Yeah, and then he finally got out of that and, started being back to himself. I don't think I ever heard a day go by without him talking like a duck. It's just what he did. He could have gone into college and all that, but he wasn't really interested. He never was interested in higher education. He just wanted to go to work and be his own man and have his own business. This is Deborah Colvard. She's another very important person in my family.
I got one.
And Deborah was just asking, well, if he liked freedom so much, why did he go into the Navy? The answer to that question is that he was drafted. This was when we still had the draft. And he was either drafted or he signed up, because when you sign up, you get more benefits that way. I think what it was that he knew he was going to get drafted. And so he went ahead and went in to get it over with.
Did you have any expression from him about being against the war or for the war or wanting to fight for the freedom, or what his philosophy was?
No, I don't remember anything about that. I do remember one thing, though, and that is that we all went through a lot of anxiety in the year that he was over there, and at the time when he went over there, the sort of cultural think was that you need to do the duty for your country. But by the time he got back, our family cultural think was that, boy, if we had to do that again, we would send him to Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the 11 months or so where the tide was starting to turn on that.
And so how old was he when he went in?
Oh, he must have been 18.
Oh, gosh, just a little boy. And then came back when he was 19.
Yeah, probably.
And it took over a year for him to get balanced again?
He was in the Navy, I think, 4 years?
No, he wasn't
3?
in the Navy 4 years. He was probably in the Navy not more than a couple years.
Well, did they muster him out because of the helicopter crash and all of that?
No, lots of times what happened then is that when a person went through their 11 months in Vietnam, they were allowed to get out.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like, okay, you did it, you can go now.
Well, then because if he'd have joined the Navy back then, it would have been a 4-year enlistment.
That's right.
If he'd have been drafted, it would have been 2.
That's right.
So he would have gone to Vietnam, and if he somehow or another, because sometimes when they had drafts, all of a sudden at the Army Induction Center, they would say, okay, this group here, you're going to the Marines, right? This group, the Army, or sometimes this group is going to the Navy. This group to the Army.
I forgot about that.
And
they
you had
didn't
nothing,
choose, did they?
right? You had no choice.
I
right.
think he enlisted then.
Okay.
I think he enlisted in order to keep that control of going, into the Navy rather than somewhere else.
Well, he must have got an early out then if he only did 2 years.
I think he did, and
Okay.
I know it was honorable and all that.
Yeah.
So when he got out, you said that he didn't talk much anymore.
Right.
So where did he go? Did he go live by himself? Or
Oh,
did
no,
he-
no,
Came
he
home.
didn't. He came home.
And he just
Came
stayed home and...
No,
or
he didn't close off from the world. He still saw his friends and stuff. He was
Yeah.
just darned quiet for a
He
while.
didn't talk like a duck every day?
I wasn't around. I was in school. So I wasn't around at that point. But when I saw him, I just remember him being very, very quiet for about 9 months.
And he didn't talk about it?
No. No,
Didn't-
he wouldn't
yeah.
tell me anything about it.
Wow.
Yeah. Wouldn't tell me anything about it. But I think what he did was he was on the helicopters when they went to pick guys up. They said, got to go pick up a couple soldiers over in the jungle here, and they go in with the helicopter and
That's
pick them up
intense.
and, get in and get out.
Oh,
And
my God.
Really, really, really intense. We found out that Duck was actually in a pretty prestigious unit, and we got some documents on that, which we'll probably be able to add as part of this video.
Good. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was very cool. Whatever you've ever heard people say about Leos, even if it's kind of cliche, that's what he was like.
So when you think of him, like now,
Mm-hmm.
is there a vision, a picture of him that comes to you mostly when you see him in your memory?
Yeah, riding that motorcycle with his hair flowing.
With his hair flying?
Yeah.
God, I love
Yeah.
that vision. That's a
Yeah.
great vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have dreams of him sometimes. In my dreams, he's always young, at the height of his life, which he was, and he says, "Hey, how's it going?"
Well, that's something to be happy about.
I'm sure he's out there still raising hell somewhere. I think he might say, just don't let anything get to you, and have fun.
Let your hair fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think it would have been like as an old man if he would have lived
The same.
into his ages?
The same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dealt with getting old and
Yeah.
maybe not being able to walk around and ride that Harley. How would he have dealt with that?
Oh, I think he always would have rode that.
He'd have
Harley.
rode the motorcycle until he just
Yeah.
fell the hell
Yeah.
over.
You know what he would have done probably?
Got a
He would have
trike. Got another trike.
He would have made a wheelchair into a trike.
Right,
or-
that's right.
that's
He would have
a
built his
great
own wheelchair.
vision.
He would have. He'd have built his own wheelchair.
He would have.
What a mentor. That
Yeah.
would have been very cool.
Yeah. would've.
Yeah, he would have done something like. He had a girlfriend, and she had a daughter, and that little girl was very much his daughter. There was very much of a dad-daughter relationship there.
So he did have a girlfriend.
He had many girlfriends.
Oh, but the one with the child.
Yeah.
And was he with her? At the
He was
time
with her
of his
for several
passing?
years. No, he actually wasn't with her at the time of his passing, but there was a very close relationship between he and his daughter. My mom's still in contact with some of these people.
He was an artist, you know,
Yeah,
and
he
he could
was.
have worked in the aerospace industry. I mean, he was brilliant, you know, and he just was a great guy.
Yeah, very, very bright, very
Yeah.
smart.
He came into the world. He was a happy guy, rocked hard, went out like he loved it. Bingo, done deal. Great guy.
Hopefully you'll see him again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We love you, Duck.